Chapter 19. Lynn asked you if she can be a zombie again. In response to Lynn's pouting as she played the victim, you joked, "What? I can't tease my girlfriend. It's not my fault that you didn't retain the memories from the previous timeline." Your words had allowed Lynn to realize the outcome of you not possessing the means to recover her memories. She would blame herself if you suffered after resetting the world, yet she didn't remember anything about you. She was glad that you had the means to recover her memory, so she reluctantly forgave you for teasing her like that. Noticing that Lynn forgave you, you became bolder as you closed the distance between you and Lynn as you hugged her waist and leaned towards her ear, softly speaking, "Haven't I fulfilled my promise? I have reset the world and I will make it up to you. I am already the strongest in this world. If you want, we can spend the entire 7 months doing whatever we want. At least, until the first evolved zombie or human awakener reaches S rank." You further added. Hearing your words, Lynn became flustered but also moved. She knew that she didn't choose the wrong boyfriend. Even when she became a zombie in the previous timeline, you still accepted her, and that allowed her to grow attached to you to the point she was willing to sacrifice herself for your sake. But after hearing your words, she immediately remembered something. "Wait, what happened after I sacrificed myself and you reached S rank? From what you said, you can only reset the world after your death, so how did you die? Was there any evolved zombie or human awakener strong enough to kill you? Did they reach a higher stage of S rank?" Out of concern, Lynn bombarded you with several questions. You noticed that she was even more concerned over you than her death. You assured Lynn, "Don't be naive, Lynn. No one in this world is powerful enough to kill me, except for myself." Rather than an assurance, she was even more surprised that you went that far to fulfill your promise to her. "Does that mean you killed yourself just to reset the world?" Patting Lynn's head tenderly and stroking her silky golden blonde hair, you looked at her crimson red eyes and spoke, "Yes. I have realized that after your death, life was meaningless without you. Only a world with you is a world worth living." New chapters will be fully updated at novel.com. Your words might sound full of love, but from another perspective, a normal person could notice that you have some screws loose on your head. In other words, you are no different from those male yandere who would do everything for your girlfriend. In layman's terms, you are mentally ill. But who said that Lynn was a normal girl? When you and Lynn, who were both mentally ill, received and realized each other's deep love for one another, it only made Lynn realize how much you loved her. It was to the point you were willing to commit suicide just to reset the world for Lynn, despite having the power to run rampant in the world. To reward you, Lynn, albeit being shy, mustered up her courage and boldly asked, "Do you want to taste me in my human version? Unlike in the previous timeline, I am still a virgin right now." Although Lynn asked you, she had already acted boldly as she pinned you to her bed. You have the power to break free from her grasp, but you didn't since you were moved by Lynn's offer. You decided to take Lynn's virginity again. Dane. The host will now be allowed to enter a partial full dive simulation. Will the host enter or not? Of course, I will enter. I never expected that regression can have this benefit of taking my girlfriend's virginity twice. Alister agreed, and he entered the simulation in partial full dive simulation. After an hour, Alister returned back to the real world with a satisfied expression on his face. Sigh, Lynn didn't last as long as before. It might be due to her human physique, which has lesser stamina than her zombie physique. And unlike before, she tastes warm. Alister commented as he still felt the aftertaste of his sex with Lynn. Of course, if Alister was to make a choice on which version of Lynn he preferred, it was none other than her zombie version. After all, that was what he was used to. Not to mention, zombie girlfriend Lynn was his first time, and she was the one he fell in love with. Although both versions were Lynn and they were the same individual, Alister still preferred Lynn's zombie version. But if Lynn didn't want to become a zombie, Alister didn't care much, since both Lynn was his Lynn. Afterward, Alister continued the simulation again. After you spent an hour playing with Lynn on the bed, Lynn realized how weak she was in her human version. In the previous timeline, you and Lynn had spent the night playing with each other, yet none of the two of you were exhausted. Lynn remembered that you had retained your power in the previous timeline, but she didn't. Although Lynn didn't care much about power, since only you were desired by her, she realized that if she was weak, she would become a burden to you. not only in terms of protecting herself from danger but also from being unable to provide you with your sexual needs. Chapter 20. Your hypothesis about the zombie physique and zombie virus. You were surprised by Lynn's question, but after thinking about it, it was indeed something that Lynn would ask you about. After all, in the second simulation, Lynn had spent 7 months as a zombie and she had grown accustomed to such life. Noticing Lynn's expectant gaze, you know that she was serious about wanting to become a zombie again. As for the side effects of eating human flesh, Lynn didn't care much about it since she had also grown accustomed to eating human flesh. Also, you know that there wasn't that much difference in eating human flesh or the meat of livestock. The only difference was that it was quite unusual to eat the flesh of a sentient creature and cannibalism was morally frowned upon. And if Lynn became a zombie, eating human flesh wouldn't be considered cannibalism since she was no longer a human. And, you didn't want to admit it, but you might not have eaten human flesh, but you had drank the blood of human awakeners to absorb the zombie virus from their bodies. You know that your methods of absorbing the zombie virus from evolved zombies and human awakeners were quite barbaric. So one of your goals in this simulation was to create a zombie virus absorption technique by using the zombie virus existing on one's body to devour the zombie virus of either a human awakener or evolved zombie without consuming their blood or flesh. You had already studied the physique of a zombie, albeit not that profound. There was a reason why zombies ate human flesh yet they didn't release any feces from their bodies. It was also the reason why you managed to drink lots of zombie blood that exceeded the maximum capacity of your stomach. After all, the internal organs of zombies had already stopped working, especially their heart, but it also included their digestive system that no longer functioned as normal. The body of a zombie was no different from the breeding ground of the zombie virus. The stomach of a zombie was no different from just containers for the human flesh that they consumed. The reason why they don't release any excrement was because they had already digested the flesh that they consumed in their stomach. The zombie virus in their body had already digested the human flesh that a zombie had consumed before it could leave their stomach, and it was already converted into nutrients that were devoured by the zombie virus. Alister could only research up to that much since he wasn't that smart in terms of scientific research. The foundation of his research knowledge was mostly based on the other zombie novels that he had read as well as his knowledge as a high school student. Even the method of evolution he created was based on the knowledge that he had deduced after remembering the zombie novels that he had read in his past life. Either way, Alister knew that Lynn becoming a zombie wasn't detrimental to him but could also benefit him. Not only can Lynn defend herself and prevent zombies from targeting her, but it could also allow him to further his research on the zombie virus. So after a minute's worth of contemplation, you replied to Lynn's question, "Yes, you can become a zombie. Whether you are a human or a zombie, my love for you won't change." V is it no, V, 3 pounds, N, com for new novels. Lynn was moved by your deep support for her. As for the method of turning Lynn into a zombie, you aren't barbaric enough to let Lynn be bitten by a zombie. It might be your conspiracy before that you hadn't defended Lynn when she was sneak attacked by a zombie in the second simulation, but you didn't plan to use that method again. You had noticed that Lynn might have already known about your conspiracy as well, but the fact she had accepted you and was willing to sacrifice herself for you meant that she didn't mind it. I have already thought of the method of transforming you from a human to a zombie without the need of a zombie biting you and infecting you with the zombie virus. You assured Lynn. Is it perhaps the viral evolution breathing method that you had created before? Lynn asked you with curiosity. She wasn't oblivious to the research that you had done in the previous timeline since you would often ask her to cooperate with you in your research. When you were researching the zombie virus, you realized that you might have the talent for performing scientific research. Even without an add-on talent from the simulation system, you could still do well in your research on the zombie virus to the point that you had achieved countless breakthroughs in your research, such as the discovery of the viral energy as well as the viral evolution breathing method. Of course, there was also a possibility that you had already thought of. And that was the zombie virus possessing semi-sentience, and in order for it to further evolve, it would subconsciously give you epiphanies in your research. You thought that such a possibility was plausible since you hadn't disclosed your research about the method of evolution, yet the human awakeners seemed to instinctively know how to evolve. It was also quite unusual how you founded the evolution ranks and stages yet never disclosed it to anyone, but everyone seemed to use it naturally through pure instinct. It's like someone looking at a color and saying it's white even if the concept of colors hadn't existed before, just because they instinctively think that it must be white. As for the threat of the zombie virus possessing semi-sentience, you didn't care. As for why, you might not trust the zombie virus, but you do have some trust in your system's talent, which was the zombie virus immunity, purple, talent. With your research about the zombie virus, you had already discovered a method of turning a human into a zombie without needing a zombie to infect that human with the zombie virus. With that in mind, you replied to Lynn's question, "No, you can't use the viral evolution breathing method since it was developed by me to allow human awakeners such as myself to evolve without needing to consume zombie blood and zombie flesh." You further explained, if you use that method, you won't become a zombie but instead, a human awakener such as myself. So, I have already thought of methods to turn you into a zombie without the need for that. Chapter 21. Lynn successfully become a zombie again. Noticing that Lynn was waiting for your explanation about your methods of turning her into a zombie, you couldn't help but feel the irony. Most humans in this world don't want to be bitten and become a zombie, yet Lynn was eager to become a zombie. Even if you didn't want to become a zombie, you're supportive if Lynn wants to become a zombie. It was due to you being born and used to live life as a human that you didn't want to become a zombie and you want to remain as a human. And from Lynn's perspective, you know it was also due to her already being used to living life as a zombie that she preferred to become a zombie again. So after noticing Lynn's desire to become a zombie again, you explained to her the methods of becoming a zombie without having to be bitten by a zombie. You introduced, "I have 3 methods to transform a human into a zombie without the need of a zombie infecting you with the zombie virus. The first method is to drink the contaminated tap water. I have already used a microscope in the previous timeline and I have proven that it has the zombie virus, albeit with lesser concentration than a zombie's blood." You added, because of the lesser virus concentration in the contaminated tap water, there are higher chances of your body developing resistance to the zombie virus instead. Which is one of the most common reasons why those lucky humans who had drank the tap water became human awakeners instead of zombies. The second method is much more reliable than the first method, and it is none other than to drink zombie blood instead of the contaminated tap water. This has higher chances of becoming a zombie, but there are still low chances of becoming a human awakener. But after you spoke of the second method, you sighed. "Unfortunately, whether it is the first or second method, I am not certain whether it will work or not since I didn't have any test subjects in the previous timeline. But that leads us to my third method, which I am very confident of even if I haven't tested it. It is none other than to drink my blood as I transfer my zombie virus into your body. And with this method, you can even retain some of the power you had in the previous timeline since I had studied the zombie virus in your body before and I have some confidence that I can slightly replicate it to make your zombie virus the same as before." When Lynn heard about the third method, she frowned. "If I am not mistaken, this was the method you had discovered after hearing that the human awakeners used this to create another human awakener. I know that you can make me a zombie with this method, but the side effect of using this method is that your strength will regress." Lynn was worried that you would suffer for her sake. After all, she knew that your current strength was at S-rank intermediate stage, and if you became weaker, it would be quite the loss since it was difficult to evolve as one reached a higher evolution rank. At least, it was a lot easier to evolve from B rank to A rank than A rank to S rank. Lynn was well aware of that, and it was the reason why she was repulsed in using that method. LA8 test novels on N of LB N com. In response, you shrugged. "At most, my strength will regress from S rank intermediate stage to S rank initial stage. But I can allow you to retain your peak strength of A rank late stage, so it's not a loss." To further assure her, you added, "You should know that after I had killed you before, I have discovered another method of evolution, which is to stimulate the zombie virus in one's body to receive a surge of viral energy. That is what allowed me to evolve from the A rank peak stage to the S rank initial stage. Only after eating your flesh and drinking your blood that I reach S rank intermediate stage. In other words, you can just think of it as me returning your power to its rightful owner since I had already achieved my goal of reaching S rank." When Lynn heard your words, she knew that she couldn't change your mind anymore, so she acquiesced. Noticing that Lynn no longer disagreed, you decided to start using the third method. After all, the sooner Lynn became a zombie and regained her peak strength, the sooner you will be more assured of her safety. Using your air superpower, you created a blade of wind to cut your wrist. Blood oozed out from your wound, but before it could fall on the ground, you used the wind to levitate it. Without needing your instructions, Lynn opened her mouth and you poured your blood into her mouth. With your control over the zombie virus as well as the viral energy in your body, you had controlled a certain quantity of the zombie virus to be transferred to your blood. You felt that your strength had regressed, and after a certain amount of zombie virus was transferred to your blood and into Lynn's body, your strength had regressed from S-rank intermediate stage to S-rank initial stage. After your zombie virus entered Lynn's body via your blood, you had already grasped some control over your viral energy, so you skillfully manipulated it and used it to integrate your zombie virus into Lynn's body. After it was integrated into Lynn's body, you transformed your zombie virus into the zombie virus that Lynn had in the previous timeline, replicating it as much as possible. Because of that, you noticed that after an hour's worth of integrating the virus and replicating it to suit Lynn, not only did Lynn become a zombie, but she had retained the same superpower as what she had before in the previous timeline. Lynn had retained her power and has successfully become an A-rank late-stage zombie at the expense of your power.